as you grab your seats, you'll probably notice one thing immediately different about me, which is, exactly, my hair is you can tussle it. Because, yesterday, I washed my hair with a shampoo that Lana got in the clearance bin called Tussle Me Gently. So they can tussle gently, only gently. And it is hilarious because you read the bottle and it's like, you know, life's rough, you gotta look up yourself, you gotta be able to tussle your hair when you want. That's why we added wild berry hybrid stuff to this big vat of chemicals. But the thing that got me about the shampoo and the conditioner was on the back, it says, be clean, be dirty, be you. It's okay. Now, and that, my friends, is the problem with our prayers. And we're going to get to that in a bit. It's not so much the shampoo you use, but the attitude that we have within us, that we have been indoctrinated with, that we really have had no choice but to adopt. Here's where I'm going today. Last week, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, it's on the website. Or if you haven't blocked me from your Facebook, you'll get those. I know a lot of people have, like, each sermon's like 30 minutes, right? So I have to put 3 10-minute ones and like the promo. So people are like, Brian, I don't want to watch these. I'm going to, they don't delete me as a friend, they just like hide me. So if you haven't hid me, then you had a chance to watch last week's sermon already. And my goal last week was to persuade you to create for yourself a prayer habit. And by habit, I meant 30 minutes a day out loud to your Heavenly Father in a private place where you're not going to be disrupted. That's a prayer habit. 30 minutes, my definition. But I tried to make a case that everyone in the Bible prays out loud, so why not you? You get together in groups and pray out loud, so why can't you do that? You talk to all your friends out loud. You don't just send thoughts to them. So out loud, I think, is the biblical way to go. Private place. I'm not saying you shouldn't pray spontaneously as you're walking around the streets or around your world, because I've preached sermons on that. You got to pray all the time, thanking God for things, asking for help throughout your day. It's just that there's something about, I tried to make this case last week, there's something about having a prayer habit, setting aside a lengthy bit of time. I said 30, that's a bit arbitrary, 20, 40, but not just 1 or 2. Set aside a lengthy bit of time to pray out loud to your Heavenly Father in a quiet, private place. In fact, I tried to argue that's one of the defining characteristics of a Christian. It's not how good they act or the words that they say, while all of that is important. But Christians can get together with their Heavenly Father and pray to Him and know that He hears them and know that He answers them. One of the defining characteristics of what a Christian is. You don't see that. You know, you look at Christians, if you've got Christian friends, or you've met Christians at work, you look at them and all you really see about them is what they say and what they do, or what they don't do and what they don't say, which you wish they'd stop saying. But you don't see them in private. So you don't, if you're new to faith, this is what Christians supposedly do in private. They talk to their Heavenly Father in a private place out loud. Well, maybe I haven't convinced you of that yet. Maybe you're still sending the thoughts, which is cool. If you haven't tried it yet, I would encourage you to try it. Jesus prayed out loud. Nehemiah prayed out loud. Daniel prayed out loud. Early Christians, the early church prayed out loud. But we're not going to spend much time on that. If I haven't won you over, I won't be able to. So that was my case last weck. And then her homework, if you chose to accept it, was go to a private place, pray out loud to God. Whatever pops into your head, whatever is heavy on your heart, and when you've unloaded everything, catch you later, God. I'll be back tomorrow. Just if it lasts you a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just begin taking a baby step into establishing a prayer habit. At this point, I want to shift into my new goal of persuading you to use the book of Psalms in the Bible in your prayer habit. Now, before I give you that solution, I think I need to point out the problem the problem that I think many of us experience is, and hopefully this week, maybe you've experienced this. Maybe last week I said, pray. I said, pray. And this week you think back on your week and you're like, I didn't pray. I didn't do what the pastor said to do. You can't really be blamed for that. I mean, you can make your excuses. I didn't have enough time. We know that's a bluff because you got enough time to use your computer, you got enough time to use your television. If you say you don't have enough time, that's why you didn't pray. Let's just get rid of that bluff right off the bat. It's a big fat bluff. Okay? Anyone problem with that? We have the time to pray. Or sometimes we say, I just don't know the words. There's some truth to that. But for a lot of us, maybe that's an excuse. Here's where I think many of us face this problem and we're not able to pray. We know we should. Our heart tells us to seek God's face. But then when we get home, or we come home from work, or we get home from school, or we've been watching the kids all day, or we get up early, or we sleep in, we don't pray. And I think it's because the problem is, we have a problem that we can't get over. We have a problem in that we have been raised in a me-centered society. Looking out for yourself and prioritizing yourself is our only available option. And this, I believe, explains our reluctance and our inability to pray. And here's why. I'll try and explain this a bit more, a few different ways. But as you grow up in a me-centered society, a me-centered culture, let me back up a bit. Our culture hasn't always been me-centered and me-focused. We haven't always been adrift on the island of me. 50, 100 years ago, culture is quite different. Our society is quite different. Family played a huge role. You focus just wasn't on yourself because you had to focus on your family. Probably your grandparents, your great-grandparents, all your cousins, your mom and dad. They all kind of lived in the same kind of town. And so you really were more family focused. You didn't want to displease your parents. Even when you got older, maybe moved out, you still wanted to obey your parents. You move out, like you're kind of done with parents, right, in our society. But back then, it was really important that you show honor to your parents, you respect them, your grandparents. When your parents get older, it was natural in the old days, come and live in my place. But now we have like RSPs and pensions and old age homes. Probably none of you will ever have your parents move into your house. But in the old days, that was almost kind of, woo! Back in the old days, that was kind of commonplace because we weren't so me-focused, we were family-focused. We were also community-focused. Our community was a big deal back in the day. It's important that all the neighbors' crops do well, not just yours. It's important that everyone in the community has a job, not just you. It's important that as a nation, we stick together as a nation, and politicians had much more influence than they do now. Back in the day, a politician or a president or a prime minister could say, ask not what we can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And people would listen to that. They wouldn't make fun of it. They would act on that and be like, yeah, I need to sacrifice. There'd be kids, you hear stories of kids during wartime picking up tinfoil and old pots and pans and going to melt it down and send arms to your country. Because we were community focused, we were family focused, we were country focused. During times in our past, we've had a common enemy. So we're kind of focused on a common enemy. World War II, World War I. We kind of knew there was this common enemy. And so we would sacrifice our children, our parents would like volunteer to go overseas and fight the common enemy, because the common enemy was pressuring, was destructive to our way of life that we had worked so hard together to make. And God was a huge part of our focus back in the day. My friend Kara told me that her dad, I guess this was 50 years ago, when he was in elementary school in Westminster, every kid but one went to Sunday school. So back then, people cared about the community of faith. They cared about God, and every decision they would make, they're like, well, it's important that I please God.